All right, let's get into it. For decades now, learning English in India has been the story of incredible aspiration, but also, let's be honest, a lot of frustration. Today, we're going to rewind the clock and look at a landmark paper from 2006 that laid out a really revolutionary vision to fix this whole thing. And it's not just about teaching English better, it's about completely rethinking what success even looks like in a country with so many languages. And this quote, wow, it just nails it. It perfectly captures what's at stake here. English isn't just another subject on the timetable. Ever since the economy opened up back in the 90s, it's been seen as the golden ticket, the key to a better life, to opportunity. And that has created this massive nationwide demand for English education, starting as early as possible. But that leads us to the big nagging question, right? If everybody wants to learn it and all the schools are teaching it, why do so many students graduate without being able to actually use the language in a meaningful way? What is going so fundamentally wrong? That's the huge puzzle this paper tried to solve, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. So here's our roadmap. We'll kick things off with what the paper calls India's English paradox. Then we'll get to the heart of the problem, the burden of incomprehension. From there, we'll explore its brilliant solution, a vision for creating true multilinguals. Then we'll get practical and look at the input-rich classroom and the huge changes needed for teachers and tests before wrapping up with a really important question for all of us today. Okay, first up, India's English paradox. This is really the core conflict that the paper sets out to understand and solve. It's where aspiration and reality collide. And this tells such a powerful story. Think about it. By 2003, 26 out of 35 states and union territories in India had started teaching English from Class 1 or Class 3. Now, this wasn't a decision based on, some educational study. It was a straight-up political response to what people were demanding. The aspiration was there, loud and clear, but the system itself just wasn't ready for it. So, okay, the demand for early English was met, but this is where the paper's core diagnosis comes in. It argues that starting early means nothing if how we teach is broken. This section really gets to the root cause of why the traditional methods just weren't working. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. The old way was completely obsessed with form. It was all about memorizing grammar rules, drilling verb tenses, and building these perfect sentences in a total vacuum. The paper argued for a massive shift, a shift to a meaning-focused approach. The goal isn't just to know the rules, it's to understand and communicate, to have language you can actually use in the real world. And this leads us to one of the paper's most powerful lines. It says the problem isn't a burden of languages. The real burden, the thing that causes all the failure, is the burden of incomprehension. That's what happens when a language is taught as a set of dead rules, totally disconnected from meaning. It just becomes another subject to memorize and, well, forget after the exam. So, if incomprehension is the disease, what's the cure? This brings us to the paper's most transformative and honestly beautiful idea. It's a huge philosophical shift. The traditional goal was simple, right? It was narrow. Just get students to be proficient in English, almost like it existed in its own separate box. But the paper proposed something so much bigger, so much more profound. The new vision wasn't just about making kids good at English. It was about creating true multilinguals. And this quote, this is the beating heart of the entire paper. English shouldn't push out or dominate a child's other languages. No way. Instead, it should be taught in a way that actually strengthens all of them. The goal is to raise citizens who can move with ease between languages, enriching India's entire linguistic ecosystem. It's not a competition, it's a collaboration. So how does that even work? Well, the logic is actually pretty simple and elegant. Higher level skills, especially something like reading, are transferable. A child who learns to read with real deep understanding in their mother tongue can carry that skill over to English. Their first language isn't a hurdle to overcome, it's the very foundation you build on. Okay, so that's the big idea, the philosophy. But what does it actually look like day to day in a classroom? That brings us to this amazing concept of the input-rich classroom. The key idea here is something called comprehensible input. This is basically the cornerstone of how we now understand language learning. It just means that we learn a language not by drilling rules, but by being exposed to messages we can actually understand. When your brain is busy figuring out the meaning of a story or a fun conversation, it just naturally absorbs the grammar and vocabulary without you even realizing it. And these are the kinds of tools you use to build that environment. We're talking about stuff that's actually engaging and meaningful. Big, colorful books you can read together, classroom libraries just packed with interesting stories, texts that are available in both the local language and English, so kids can bridge the gap. Even things like radio programs, plays, and songs. The whole point is to surround the child with English that's alive and exciting, not just a bunch of dead words on a textbook page. But here's the thing. Even the best classroom ideas in the world are going to fail if the system around them is broken. The paper knew this. It recognized that you also have to fix two other giant pillars: how we train our teachers and how we test our students. So for teachers, the paper laid out a clear three-part plan. First, let's directly help teachers improve their own confidence and skills in English. Second, training shouldn't be a one-time thing. It needs to be continuous, ongoing support, right there in their own schools. And third, and this is so important, teach them the methods in their own language. That way, they deeply understand the concepts, instead of just trying to memorize a bunch of English jargon. The other huge systemic fix is about testing. The paper points out that these achievement tests, which really just measure how well you memorize a textbook, are a huge reason so many students fail. The solution? Proficiency tests. These tests don't ask what you remember, they ask what you can do. Can you use the language in a new situation? It's a total shift from testing memory to testing actual real-world ability. And all of this brings us to our final section, where we pull all these threads together and think about what this paper means for us, right now.
So, to wrap up the paper's clear, systemic plan, make sure teachers are proficient themselves. Flood classrooms with meaningful, interesting language. Make true multilingualism the goal in every school. Test for real-world ability, not just textbook memory. And finally, create a way for students to pass school even if they struggle with English, so it doesn't become a barrier to their entire future.
This incredible roadmap was laid out all the way back in 2006. It diagnosed the problems with just stunning clarity and offered this powerful, coherent solution. And that leaves us with one final, really provocative question. How much of this vision has actually become a reality in our classrooms today? It's a question worth asking.